Good morning, grade 3, 4, 5s, and welcome to music class. This week, the Friday, May 14th lesson. I hope you're still enjoying some time outside in between all the raindrops, and making sure that you're getting lots and lots of activity and not sitting in front of the screen too often. And I hope with that activity you're including some of Cooperation Hop, whether you're working with it sometimes with your instrument, or if you're working with it with the actions that we also learned. We were going to be performing it originally next week, but it looks like that's going to be delayed. But nevertheless, we're going to continue to work on learning that. Today, we're actually going to learn the rest of the ukulele part for the chorus. All right, but before we do that, I hope that you have something to do rhythms with, hands, spoons, whatever, for our Pilgrim's Progress, Christian Pilgrim's Progress story shortly. And if you have your worksheet from last week, which was circling all these, hopefully you found them all in there. Let's just quickly go through and make sure that you understood each instrument and what family. So we had talked about the wind family, the percussion family, and the string family. And so each of these we were putting under those original categories. So let's go through them. So if you put them under these proper families, then you can correct them, okay? And make sure that you get a point. Give yourself a point for that. So the accordion is actually, sometimes it was called the squeeze box, but it's considered part of the woodwind family. Banjo, you would know would be string, like the ukulele. The cello is also string family. The clarinet would be the wind family. The drum would be the percussion family. And actually, if you look at symphonies or orchestras, the percussion family is sometimes one of the biggest sounds in the symphony because it includes a lot of other instruments, as we'll go on here and see. Then we have the flute, which would be a wind instrument. The guitar, string family. Harmonica, wind family. Harp, string family. Marimba. Now the marimba is a deep tone sort of xylophone, and it actually is of African origin, but it would be considered a percussion instrument. The organ would be a string instrument. The piano, a string instrument. The recorder, a wind instrument. The saxophone, from the wind family. The triangle, which is another one that you sometimes see in a symphony, it would be a percussion instrument. The trumpet, a wind instrument. The tuba, a wind family. And the xylophone, like the marimba, is part of the percussion family. So if you put those under, now some of them you might not have been familiar with, and that's okay. But each of these we were putting or categorizing under the 3 different families of music instruments. All right. So that, hopefully you scored yourself well on that one and had some fun finding those word searches. Now, this week you would have received a worksheet that looked like this. All right. Now we're going to quickly review across the top because actually if you can fill in all of these across the top, you would be able to fill all of these. These are combinations of rests and notes. And what they want you to do is to fill in each answer here with a note, not a number, with the actual note. So for instance, a quarter note plus a quarter note would be equal to 2 beats, and a 2-beat note is a half note. So let's just quickly review. We'll go all across the top here, okay? This is some rests up here, so put the corresponding or matching note here, and then go on down here and put the corresponding note value of the total in each of the boxes. So just to quickly review, whole rest, whole note, worth 4 beats. Dotted half rest, dotted half note, worth 3 beats. half note, half rest, half note, worth 2 beats. Quarter rest, quarter note, worth 1 beat. And finally, the 8th rest and the 8th note. That's what it looks like if it stands alone. Very often we see it in pairs, okay? But an 8th note is worth a half beat. So if you can review those on your own a little bit too, that is very helpful to get through this worksheet. So what we'll do next week when we get together is we will take up all the answers to this. But if you fill this in and these in, and if you need to review what I just did, or you go back to your workbooks when we had music class together, and there'll be some of that information in there. So have some fun with that. Try and work on that. And if it's a sunny day, make sure you're outside first and then come in and work on some of this, okay? Very good. All right. Next, what I'd like you to do is to grab your ukulele, and we're going to finish off learning the rest of our cooperation hop chorus. All right, so I'm going to move this back just a wee bit so you get a better look at my ukulele when I'm playing it, because I can tend to put it down a bit. My apologies. There, and I'll move this back closer when we go into our story time. So remember we did the A, if you can see that. Then the F sharp minor. Then we had the D, which was stacked. And then the cheater E. All right. So let's go through that. Sing along with me. And then we'll go on to finishing the rest of it, okay? We won't go too quickly. We'll try and take our time, okay? Doop, doo, wop, do the cooperation hop. Once you start, you'll never want to stop. Jump right in, don't be left out, 'cause friends helping friends is what it's all about. Shooby dooby 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 doo wop, do the cooperation hop. All right. So I'm going to move it closer now so you can see just my fingers, and I'll tilt this down and we will try and I'll hold it up here for the doobie doo up, the last part. So jump right in, don't be left out, 'cause D, friends helping, then lift, friends is what it's all about. Then the shooby, go back to the A. Shooby dooby dooby dooby. Then back to the D. Dooby doo wop. Do the A. Cooper. All the way up to Asian hop. So there's a lot of lifting this finger number 2. Okay, so let's go back to friends helping friends. Friends helping friends is lift finger number 2. What it's all about. Then back to the A. Shooby dooby, lift finger number 2 again. Dooby dooby to the D. Dooby doo, lift finger number 2 again. Wop, do the cooperation. A. Cooper, all the way up to the cheater E. Ration. Hop. There you go. So a lot of times, and you know what, you can actually, as you're singing it, hear it, but a lot of times you're playing finger number 1 and then finger number 2 and then lift finger number 2. And that will help to get that sound. So we're just kind of using some different variations, particularly for this song. When we get back together, we'll continue to learn full chords, okay? Remember too, we started working on our scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. the scale. So don't forget that you also want to be reviewing the scale, how you play it. Next week we'll do some more scale and maybe go a little bit slower so you can follow along. Have some fun. Remember, it's on a link on DCA to listen to Cooperation Hop, and you can even try playing along with it. All right. So what I want to do now is turn this over to our piece here that has all, my chair's in the way, all the different rhythms on it. Today I'm not adding a new rhythm. If you need to fill in your sheet here, do so. Okay, remember you had this. We're not adding a new one today, but go along. You could even just freeze or stop right here on this frame and fill in all of the rhythms so you have it here, because eventually I'll introduce new rhythms, but I'm finding that you can't really see the book if I have to have it in front. So that's why I had this created for you to put the rhythms in. I will try and pause slightly after I use any one of these words in our story today so you can practice the rhythm. Let's just go through it quickly together and we'll clap it, starting with City of Destruction. City of Destruction. Pilgrim. Now his name is actually Christian. Evangelist. Celestial City. Gate of Decision. Mr. Goodwill. Palace Beautiful. And so these are all combinations of quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes. Now we haven't used a whole note yet in any of these, but if you want to look ahead, we have some more words that we're going to continue to add to our story. So let's now continue. You've got your rhythm instrument. Let's continue our story with the story of Pilgrim's Progress. So we last left him as he was journeying, okay? He had left Mr. Goodwill, and he had been instructed to stop at the Palace Beautiful. But if you remember, when he got close, it was still light out, and he sort of thought, you know, I could get that much sooner. I could end up getting to the Celestial City if I were to just continue on. But he also remembered that Mr. Goodwill had told him that he had something very special that he would receive if he stopped at the Palace Beautiful. And so Pilgrim made the right decision, and he decided to go up to the Palace Beautiful, and there he knocked on the door gently. And he was greeted by a very, very friendly looking man. Welcome! Who are you? Oh, well, I am Christian Pilgrim. Well, how did you get here? And with this, Pilgrim, Christian Pilgrim, explained to the gentleman how he had gone from the City of Destruction through the Gate of Decision, just as Evangelist had told him, and how excited he was to get to the Celestial City. And Mr. Goodwill had instructed him to stop at the Palace Beautiful. Well, after he had explained all of it, and he'd explained how he had his burden taken away, how he'd knelt at the cross of the good King's Son Jesus, how he had been so sorry for his sins and his burden had been released. Well, with all that information, the gentleman invited him warmly in to the Palace Beautiful. Once he got inside, he quickly saw the beautiful, beautiful group of people who had been singing the beautiful, beautiful music that he had heard from afar. And they welcomed him, and they said, "You must be hungry." And at that, Christian thought, "Yeah, actually, I am really hungry." And they set him down to a banquet table full of the best food. Ever since Christian Pilgrim had gotten rid of his burden, things had tasted better. The world had looked brighter. He had a freedom that he had never experienced before after he had received the forgiveness of the good King's Son, Jesus, and had his burden taken away. And when he was done, he was sure they were taking him down the hall to where the very special things were waiting for him, as promised by Mr. Goodwill. But instead, they led him to a room. And in the room was a big, comfy looking bed. And they said, you must rest now. Well, inside, Christian was thinking, oh, well, wait a minute. There was something for me that you had promised. But the minute he put his head on the pillow, he fell fast asleep. And above it was this plaque that it said, when you lie down, you shall not be afraid. You shall lie down and your sleep shall be so sweet. And it was. The next morning he woke up feeling more rested than he thinks he ever felt in his whole life. They fed him another huge breakfast. Still, Christian was wondering, where was these things that Mr. Goodwill had promised him? After a big hearty breakfast, they headed down and said, we are taking you now to the armory room. And in the armory room were all pieces of armor. There was a belt they gave him. There was a breastplate they gave him. There were shoes they gave him. There was a sword they gave him. There was a shield they gave him and a helmet. They said, be very careful with all these pieces of armor. You will need these to protect yourself because the evil one would do anything he could to keep you from getting to the celestial city. And you need these things to protect you. But the most important piece you have is your sword. Every day, spend time reading that holy word, the Bible. And make sure you always carry it with you like your sword to protect you. And there are two other things you must remember, Christian. You must watch and you must pray. Never stop watching and praying. Of course, said Christian Pilgrim. No, they repeated. You must take this very seriously. If you don't, you could end up in some very, very difficult times. So remember, what's he told to do? Say it with me. To watch and pray. Next time we get together, we'll find out what happens to Christian Pilgrim from here. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.